Mr. Mayor, we're live.
Thank you for that, David. All right, the time, I'm calling to order the City Council special meeting for March 4th, 2026. The time is 5:07 PM. City Clerk, can we get roll call, please? Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. All right, I'm now going to open public communications. Seeing that there's no one in the audience today, I will now close public communication. All right, there is one open session study session, and that is the mobile food truck vendors. Manny, who's going to be presenting this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have Okina, our Community Development Director, as well as Carlos, the Supervisor of the division, and they will give a joint collaboration. And Okina, it's all yours.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and member of the City Council. Tonight before you, you have a study session with regards to the discussion of mobile food truck vendors. And this issue have been coming up quite a bit throughout our community. We have some mixed feelings and emotion as well, but we have codes in the book that requires the regulation and enforcement of such. And what's provided you tonight is a copy of the regulation that's spelled out in the Baldwin Park Municipal Code. And as well as we prepared a PowerPoint for yourself. We created this for you to be able to follow and then also take some notes as needed as well. So next, please, David or Charles. This next slide is with regards to the time limit regarding vendors for food trucks. And basically the time limit that's set forth is 10-minute interval with regards to a single location. So one of the concern is that one specific or two specific food truck has been parking within the city limit in front of a shopping center on the street for hours on end. And in addition to the time limit, there is a separation requirement with regards to the distance separation of no less than 100 feet from each other. This is to prevent and mitigate any traffic congestion, accessibility, as well as over concentration of these type of food facility throughout the community. Along with this, behind your attachment before I move to the next slide is a survey of all the surrounding cities that Carlos and his team surveyed with regards to other agencies and their regulatory requirement, and I'll go through that after the presentation itself. Next slide, please. So far, as part of the collaboration of our business license division, I've asked our business license division to run the business license of all the different food trucks that is permitted, approved by the health department, and licensed within the city of Baldwin Park. And there's a total of 6 that's currently licensed. I hear through the rumor mill that there's only 1 that's licensed in the city, 1 is permitted, and in fact, 6 of them are throughout the city itself. The aerial photo that is attached as part of this slide shows 2 specific food truck vendor. The 2 specific location that is the stem of the complaints that comes before the city council under public comments and randomly throughout the community itself through our community enhancement officers division, as well as complaints that does come in. So the aerial photo shows the location of the 2 food truck right in front of the Target shopping center. And when looking at this shopping center and the area surrounding it, they have quite a bit of a variety of food use, from your typical Starbucks to Raising Cane's to other fast food type of business and mom and pops as well. So, but the food truck delivers something that's complementary to the variety of food that people can use and eat. So the two trucks that is parked at this location is the Barbachi Grill and the Cali Sweet Inc. So they're the two type of food truck that's typically concentrated and located here throughout the days.
Okina, will you elaborate a little bit more? You said 6 food trucks are approved. Can you elaborate on what approved means other than business license?
Yes. So any food trucks, in order for them to be legal, licensed, legit, they have to file and get health department approval to make sure their facility is sanitized, meet all the health code and health requirement. And upon obtaining that approval, any city that they do business at, whether, let's just say, Okina's food truck, and Okina food truck, throughout the day, I travel through 10 cities. Well, if I do business within 10 cities, I get 10 business license. So as part of our city, in terms of the licensing with the city of Baldwin Park, we have 6 food truck license that is licensed and approved by the health department, the county health department, and the city of Baldwin Park through a city business license. And this is not the list of all the food trucks that comes through the city that are not licensed and not legal and not legit. So there's many variety of food trucks that travel through the city that is licensed and approved by the county health department, but not licensed and approved by the city of Baldwin Park.
Another question. Are we still issuing permits for food trucks? Or has that stopped?
Yes, they can come in anytime, any day, when the business and city hall hours operation is open, to apply for a city business license, pay for the permit, post it on their truck, and whether it's law enforcement, city official, or community enhancement officer goes to the facility and asks them, "Are you licensed and permitted within the city?" They're able to show it via their vehicle registration and post it on their windows or their tags itself.
Quick question for that follow-up on that, Okina. Is there a limit of licenses that we issue as a city, or is it
No,
limited as long as they have their permits?
as long as they have their permits, as long as it's licensed, as long as they obey all rules and regulation, they have every right to
Apply.
operate within our city limits.
And when you said they have to come, I'm sorry, when you say you have to come into the city to apply for the permit, what hours are we giving them to be able to come to the counter? Because I know that I've had a lot of complaints about the counter hours. So what are the hours of operation that they're able to come to the counter?
So we recently adjusted our hours operation from 7:30 till 5:30.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And the last 30-minute is for our intake division that deal with monies and checks and clearance and closing out the till. So building and safety, our business license, taking money and writing receipts and so forth, they need that extra 30-minute to close out their till for the day, deposit the check in the safe and get it secured before the next business day.
Okay. So then if anyone asks, they're able to come to our counter any day from Monday to Thursday from 7:30 to 5:30.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. And they also can communicate with us via 24/7, email, phone, because we have voice messages that can take down information and we do follow-up phone calls.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilman Bravilla?
Number of licenses, I would not want all the trucks saturated.
It's going to be very difficult. The city attorney will be able to share with you the legality of that. And because it's not just county regulated, it's also state regulated. So we can't limit the number of folks coming in. We can regulate it in terms of the folks that comes in and do business in the city, whether they have a city business license or not.
And we could implement some restrictions of where they could park and how close to another food truck, how close to a restaurant.
Yes, we could put quite a bit of stipulation, restriction, districts, streets, distance away from schools, parks, other situation, distance separation between food truck. We do actually have that in our code currently. As an example, 100 feet away from another food truck. I know in this instance, they're next to each other or close to each other, less than 100 feet for sure. There's distance separation that they have to keep away from schools. Now, our city is pretty lax. For example, specifically ice cream truck. They cannot obstruct the view that's 200 feet in both direction of the street. Basically, it prevents them from staying like right in the corner intersection where there's kids crossing the streets or what have you. So 200 feet distance separation. They have to be separated at least 200 feet for audible noise because ice cream truck has, music and announcement and volume and so forth. Some crank it really high, some crank it enough, just appropriate. So we have those type of situation. Also on page 2 of your ordinance, section O, it stipulate the hours that they can be within our city. Our city is 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. each day. So that's a restriction hours operation. I've seen from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. I've seen a lot less. When we get to the survey, we can walk through that step and process. Any other question, or should I go on to the next one? Okay. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this is to allow food trucks within the time and basically establish a time frame that the council see fit. Right now, in our current code, it's 10-minute interval. That means they can park there for 10 minutes, do their business,
Not realistic.
move on. It's absolutely not realistic. I think originally and initially it's intended to try to prohibit that activity from happening. But the reality of operation, I'll just use a taco truck as an example, right? I want to order, 5 tacos. Well, it takes me 10 minutes to do 2 tacos. Does that mean you got to follow me a couple 100 feet away just for me to prepare the other 2 or the other 3? It doesn't make sense realistically.
The burger over for
Right, exactly. So we have to, the big question for the council is that, do we want this? Do we support mobile food truck, mobile businesses? And if we do, how flexible or how restrictive we want to regulate it? And you got to look at it from an operational standpoint and what have you. And, the second bullet is allow food truck only to operate between the hours of whatever the of is, right? So that's the purpose of this study session. Our goal is we have this discussion, we vet the issue, we come to consensus, provide direction to staff, and staff will draft the ordinance, work with the city attorney, what we can and cannot regulate, how long, how much, what's the distance, or what have you, within the purview that we're allowed to do based on state legislation, based on new laws. As you're aware, every year, sometimes every so often months, state changes regulation. I don't know if the council know, we have regulation on not just food trucks, food vendors, food carts, food stand, home businesses, micro businesses, micro enterprise business, and many other things. So the county the county health department has been tasked to regulate all these facilities. And each facility, each category has its own specification. To give you an example, for the last few decades, and this has been going on for at least a few decades already, and the legislation is written with the intent to help mom and pop folks to earn some income to survive, to put food on the table, and in this case, provide food to other folks, right? So with the different type of food, the one thing that the health department have not yet allowed or approved is an individual coming in, driving up to the curb, pull out their equipment, pull out their food, set up on the sidewalk, set up in a vacant lot, set up in a vacant parcel, and start cooking and start preparing and selling food. The health department have not issued any license that I know of in the state of California to authorize that legality. Does it happen? Yes. Does it happen a lot? Yes. Does it get regulated quite a bit or enforced? Yes. And the reason for that is those type of facility requires from the health department what we typically refer to as the 3-compartment sink. You go to a restaurant, there's a 3-compartment sink, right? There's a sink that has 3 compartments. You dump in the dirty dishes, you clean the dirty dishes, and you put it in the clean water area before you dry and put it on the shelf. The 3-compartment sink is a stage of cleaning and cleanliness process. No food vendor have been successful enough, maybe years down the future when they could minimize a 3-compartment sink, have a cleaning station. So when we have like our street festival, street market, and other activities that people hold or every city hold, when you deal with food, you have to have some type of cleaning station. When you deal with like a festival or a big event, health department are able to assist by having a concentrated cleaning area. For example, if you have a street market type of facility and they sell food, every 4 vendors can share one cleaning station, the 3-compartment sink station. So you put one right in the middle, or food vendor or tents and share that. And then the next 4 will share the next cleaning station, so on and so forth. So they've stretched it that far. But for those that just drive up with a van or a truck to a street, start setting up tables and chairs, food, selling it, those are not legal. They're not legit. They're not approved by the health department. And for us, once the health department review, vet it, and approve it, we issue the license to legitimize their business and acknowledge that they're licensed by the state, by the county, and they are approved and licensed by the city. The next slide, please, is the Q&A. And if you have any additional question that you may have, before we get the Q&A, the very last page of your handout is the result of the survey of the surrounding community. So Baldwin Park being on top, we have Azusa, Pasadena, South El Monte, the city of Artesia. I threw it in there because it's the former city I came from. I know the regulation. So Carlos was gracious enough to add that in there. La Puente, Monrovia, Covina, West Covina, Urbandale, and El Monte. Some has very little to no regulation. Some regulate, give you an example. Let's use Pasadena as an example. 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our city, our hours of operation is 9 to 8 p.m. Artesia, as an example, my former city that I came from, is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. in terms of allowable use and operation. There's a lot of these businesses that operate till like they know less enforcement, operate till 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. I took the liberty of driving to San Bernardino once, and people were telling me, you see it lined up very late at night, and they said, you know, these folks stay up till like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. And it's just like a food galore for everybody. So this will give you kind of like an overview of how other cities regulate. So the standard industry for most cities, as you can see in the survey, is 1 hour. So you could stay, you could park at a location. By the time you set up, the time you do the sales transaction, you have 1 hour to stay there. Then you have to move on. And that's something that's manageable. But it requires a lot of staff enforcement. And, we don't have an army of PD, we don't have an army of community enhancement officer, but our key goal is education and awareness. And basically, we don't confiscate anything. We encourage them to move along. Please go to the neighboring cities. Our city doesn't allow for it. And thank you for your cooperation. That's really the gist of our enforcement. And of course, we don't want to cite anybody because they're trying to make a living. But if we have to, and let's just say we give reasonable time when it comes to enforcement. We would go by and we say, please wrap it up. I'll give you an hour. When I come back, hopefully everything is clean, clear, and on the way. I know quite a few of the council receive texts and updates with regards to the complaint that comes in, with regards to the action that's taken. Our staff does an amazing job in addition to our fellow colleague with the Chiefs team. Sometimes they assist as well when, especially on Sundays, to address these stuff. And, I know Carlos and our team would basically send me and even Manny a text before or current and after. Yes, this is the proof that we've addressed it. They've cleared it. Here's the before and after picture, and it's done. We thank them and we moved on. And our officer thanked the people for basically complying to the requests. For many situations, we feel the compassionate situation of folks and their arrangement, but we also need to enforce the code and law and the sanitation for our residents, for our community. So with that said, I want to open the discussion. We're here to take down notes, seek direction from the city council, and then see where we're going to go from there, what type of code amendment need to be done or need to be brought back for either further discussion or for action to be considered.
Mayor,
Thank you for that, Okina. Go ahead.
sorry. Thanks for the presentation, Okina. I know it's a very complicated issue. So I just kind of want to go down the list, but I mean, for beginners, I mean, I think it's really important to stress that these food vending ordinances are pre-SB 972 and pre-SB 946. So these are outdated. They haven't been changed in a very long time, right? So I think it's really important that you work with legal to make sure that we're updating our ordinances, make sure that we are up to par with state requirements. And then by that, also highlighting like the example, the 10-minute, I can only assume that the idea that a truck is going to be for no more than 10 minutes, that applies to something like an ice cream truck. That was never intended. I can't imagine that it was intended for a food truck, right? And so, I know that we've asked for a while now to make sure that we pause and that we don't enforce these because they make no sense. And I don't think, at least I personally don't feel or perceive that it makes sense or that it's fair to have street vendors go through these hurdles. So you said we have 6 food vendors. So we've had 6 food vendors go through all these hurdles to get permitted, registered, and licensed to do this. And then we're going to go and try to kind of poke at them with these artificial barriers, because that's what they become when we are well aware that these ordinances are not reasonable, for a food vendor, and we're trying to enforce them on them after we've made them do all these, go through all these hoops. I don't think that it comes off a little bit abusive in my opinion. So I mean, the idea that we can keep expecting food vendors in 10 minutes to serve a plate and move and then serve a plate again, it's just not going to make any sense. I know that you mentioned so I know that you get complaints from residents, and I think that honestly there's just residents that are not in agreement with street vending, and that's entirely up to them. But we do have to make sure that we're equal for everybody, and if there's as long as we've set some regulations that are fair and they're following them, that a resident doesn't want to support street vending, then they don't have to support street vending. I know that we worry about the eateries, but the truth is that, for example, hibachi, if I'm going to buy hibachi, I was never considering going to a drive-through in the first place because the price points are just not the same, right? The quality of the food is not the same. We live in a food desert. Like Holden Park is a food desert, right? And so food trucks are not exactly a problem, it can be an opportunity to make sure that residents have options to eat, that our streets are lit up after 6 o'clock, right? It's one of the things that we talk about where, our downtown shuts down at 6 o'clock or everything shuts down at 6 o'clock. Having street vendors can be to an extent a benefit, and they do collect taxes. I personally have purchased from a hibachi grill and I swipe my card and I get a receipt. And I know that they are collecting taxes on those. So, there's a lot of myths to dispel, I believe, on this topic. Those are some of the things that I wanted to ask. Also, we've also asked in the past that we, treat our street vendors with respect and dignity, regardless of whether they are permitted or not. And one of the things that we've been very vocal on, and at least in the past, is that making sure that we're not dumping their food or that we're confiscating it. Just in general, I think it looks really bad. It puts our staff in a weird position. It creates, just potentially escalate issues. And especially with this current atmosphere, we don't want to be engaging in that type of action, nor do we want to be seen in that limelight, especially as law enforcement or just, any sort of enforcement in general. So I think it's really important that we're careful, that we're respectful to our street vendors. We're also just keeping the conversation, data focused, right? Making sure that we're not going based off of feelings and emotions, but just actually looking at what needs to be done and what can be done. And like I said, in a fair way that gives people the opportunity to make a living, especially when they've gone through those expectations that we have of them.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Estrada. Go ahead, Councilmember Avila.
Thank you. Thank you, Okina, for the presentation. I feel the same about the truck vendors. I would love it if we could limit the number of trucks, but you're saying it's a state law that we can't not allow them to limit them. The good thing about the food trucks is that they do have to have a license. They have to have a city license. They have to have a health license to operate in the city. I do feel that those 10 minutes, I want to express the same feeling, those 10 minutes parked to be able to prepare food, it's unreasonable. We need to provide, even an hour to me is unreasonable, because if you're in the middle of an order and your time's up, it just does not make any sense. So I believe we need to work on that, on the time that they should be allowed to be out there. Street vending is very controversial. However, we're talking about different street vendors. These are vendors that are fully licensed. So it does make a difference how they're operating. When they're not licensed, we're actually putting the city in a liability situation when we have vendors with no licenses. So actually having the trucks with the licenses is important. They do generate taxes, as Councilmember Estrada said. So I think just working with the time limit that they should be parked and make sure that we provide an area that it's not blocking any driveways or not blocking any access to any businesses or especially restaurants is extremely important. So we need to work on that. As far as truck vending, I think we have brought this up in the past about even promoting events with truck vendors where we have, Zocalo is a great place right now. Or even we talked about the Metrolink station where we invite street vendors in their trucks fully licensed and have a food vending event. We can generate tax money by selling food. Not it wouldn't be like the parks or anything like that, but we would have just events to promote the street vendors that are licensed here in the city. And I think Councilmember Estrada had brought this up in the past. So maybe we can still look into that to promote the street vending, and so the community can see that these vendors are legitimate, they're licensed, they're clean, they're approved by the health department. I think that would be a great idea. But again, let's work on the time that they are to be parked and the areas, because I think they need more time to be able to sell their food.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on that. There isn't any clear case law on it yet, but I think what is clear is that a total ban is not allowed. And there is at least one Superior Court case where they were challenging. I think in that case it was a 30-minute and even had an hour limit, and they determined there was no rational basis for that type of limitation that short. So I think what you're talking about right now is probably more in line with what the courts are going to want some kind of reasonable period of time because it's regulated. We're allowed to require these permits, but we can't require anything more than what's already, like the health issue is already governed. So that's not something we can get involved in. So requiring a license, requiring a business license and for the city, just typical registration, things like that. But we could ban it in a particular area, but we'd have to allow it somewhere else. I just wanted to throw that in there that I think we need to come up with a reasonable plan. The events is a great way that I think people, as a matter of fact, those food trucks often, in my experience, they work together and they communicate. There's going to be an event at such and such place and they go to that place and every Thursday they're there, and they kind of talk together. So it becomes an event that people on social media go to and it gets marketed. So
Christian, just for clarification, so we can't put a maximum allowed food vendors within our community?
I don't think you could put a maximum because I think it's more about time, place, and manner.
Okay.
It's like, okay, that is not a good location. We're going to not allow them on city, residential streets, for example.
Correct. Okay.
But
So, sorry, I just wanted to add, so really important. So something to look at too is the city of LA. I mean, city of LA is kind of the ground zero for everything and anything that comes to this area, right? And so, city of LA had a lawsuit in 2023 about their no vending zones. So something to look into. I don't know what the outcome of that was, but they also had a pilot for special vending zones, which I think is what you are all referring to. So just making sure that we're, keeping ahead. And also really, education is really, really important. I know that I was aware that we are going to start heading into this conversation. I did start connecting with like the LA County Department of Economic Opportunity. I know that they have they have their efforts to educate on like micro enterprises, which are MACO, obviously not food vendors, not truck vendors, but one of the issues that I think that intersects with this and that aligns with it. So a lot of I think it's important to make sure that we're having those conversations with our street vendors, with our entrepreneurs that are interested in this, because we want to make sure that we get them to be legal, and then the more we help them to be legal, the more we benefit from them being legit businesses, right? So I just wanted to bring up those points, and then of course I know that we're trying to limit spaces. So one of the things that I really think is important is that if you start setting these parameters as to you can't be 500 feet from this curb, or you can't be 200 feet from a school, we need to have a map where we can pinpoint and tell these people, these vendors, where they can be. Because if I give you a puzzle and you have to figure out all these hints, then they'll never know where they can be, right? So, and Baldwin Park is a very small city, 7 square miles. So a lot of the times, commercial areas are right behind residential areas, right? So a lot of these things could, right? We don't want to have a guessing game with them, and then they feel like we're just kind of targeting them. So we have all these places that we're kind of setting. Then we want to be able to say, hey, you can street vend here, right? We don't want them to have to guess. The important one. Be specific, yeah, in the areas that we're choosing.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Estrada. Councilmember Lozano or Mayor Pro Tem Ayala, do you have any questions or comments?
I just have a couple comments. First of all, thank you, Okina, for the presentation as well. I agree in terms of the time frame. Not limiting, obviously to that 10-minute. It's not very realistic. And then also, my main concern would not necessarily be a school or anything of that sort. It would be more of kind of like making sure that they're not next to a business of their kind. So if it's, selling tacos, I don't want them, directly next to a location like that. That would be my concern, that it's not with a business, like a like business, because I know even in planning, when you're opening a business, you don't want to be, pizza joint right next to a pizza joint. So I think that's defeating the purpose. But other than that, I'm open to allowing them as long as they're cleared and all of that stuff. but then taking off that 10-minute unrealistic time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman Lozano?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that about 2 months ago, I went to one in LA up a street called Broadway and Figueroa and the Lincoln Heights Cypress Park area. And they had about maybe 30, 40 trucks, all unique, and it's interesting, to go to different places. And it just seems like you get all this crowd that just congregates there, right? So, and obviously, if you haven't experienced that, you'd have to, because it's really interesting. But yes, it does. It does. But then overlooking what we have, obviously, there's state, county, city, whatever ordinances. So obviously we have to work with them. And the location part, the only ones I really ever see are the ones right there, right next to Target, those two that are there, right? And because you said there's a total of 6, or maybe and then there was one that got set up with the whole lamps and all by the that coffee place across from In-N-Out Burger, like Cafecito.
Oh, mi cafecito,
Yeah, right
yeah.
there, one time, but on that, I mean, I'm not, it seemed like scattered throughout the city. At least that's my viewpoint. I'm missing something.
Yeah,
About it.
we see it throughout the community.
Yeah, I've only seen the 2 food trucks over by Target.
Yeah.
So when you said 6, I'm like, where are the other 4 at? Because
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen them.
So usually food trucks are where they make their money is when they're mobile, when they're moving. So let me give you a walkthrough, because some city restrict or regulate, like it could go into an industrial park. There's where there's a manufacturing facility or industrial
Oh,
facility.
you mean
right?
more like the lunch trucks?
Yeah, the lunch truck
Got
type
it,
of deal.
okay.
That's their bread and butter. That's
we go
who
for
they
it.
cater to, their clientele.
Got it.
Food truck, food vendor, it's a very controversial topic. If you ask a fixed location business, they'll give you their viewpoints. You ask food truck folks, they give you their viewpoint, and the viewpoint is opposite of each other, right? And also, like Councilmember Ayala was saying, or Mayor Pro Tem Ayala was saying, her concern is not having the same like business. So you have let's just say a taco restaurant, or a restaurant that sells taco, and then a food truck that sells taco, and they park in front of it and blocking their business frontage and competing against them. Yeah, it's not ideal. But the problem with laws and codes is that it's business competition. We can't regulate it because it's restricted. I mean, sometimes on the opposite note, certain type of business concentrate together because it attract more business. If you don't like my taco, you like that taco, they compete, they get each other clientele, right? So we can't restrict those type of aspect. And I get the understanding and the meaning of that. And food truck, it started 2 decades ago when they even have TV shows about food trucks. They have, they did an amazing race with food trucks from all over, the United States and even the world. So it's there. It's just, how do we want to regulate it? How restrictive do we want to regulate it? How flexible we want to regulate it? The health and safety aspect is normal. To one of the comment with regards to confiscating food, that the hope that we don't confiscate food, we do not confiscate food. I maybe predate myself, sharing with you how old I am, but 30 plus years ago, one of my senior project was, I did 2, legal garage conversion and enforcement of food trucks. And this started when, the push cart type of folks, right? Not these type of food truck. And it's a touchy subject. Very few agency regulate and confiscate food carts or food itself because they have to dump all the food away. And it's a nightmare for storage and enforcement. One classic example, 30 plus years ago, one of my case study cities was city of El Monte. And they were confiscating food carts, dumping foods and so forth, that they were so overwhelmed. And they have a retrieval process and policy nobody come retrieve it back. It's a loss. And because they're using people's shopping carts, taking off the name, converting it, what have you. So they were getting so much parts from all different variety, from makeshift to shopping carts, what have you, that they don't have a place to store them. Their entire public workshop was filled with them. So what they did was they did a recycling program, salvage the metal. And that's how they were able to get rid of them. So, and I'm not saying to enforce that because it's a nightmare to do so. But our staff, our team has been very respectful. We understand that they're trying to make a living. They're not committing any crime or anything like that. So we ask politely, we respect people, and we give them time to abate and comply with the code. And 99.9% of the time, we have volunteer compliance, and that's very successful. Many cities don't have that luxury. They just squat there and sit there and they use the code against them until we get to a point where we're forced to cite or we get assistance from PD or sheriff to help with the enforcement of that. But I think, you know, for our city, I think I see the compassion on all sides. We just have to find a happy medium on how to do it, and we need to enforce our code and our law. There's no point to write the code and the law that we can't enforce. And usually when I deal with certain things like this, I seek the expertise of the city attorney to draft the code, not just the city attorney, but the city prosecutor. Writing the code, but enforcing it is another thing. So they work collaboratively. Do we have enough teeth to enforce? And do we have enough teeth to pursue the enforcement and the prosecution and abatement of that? So it's a key component. So whatever direction that the council will want to give, we're here, we're all ears. And
Thank you for that, Okina. So I did have a couple of questions. First, I don't know, Carlos, if you can go up to the podium. I wanted to ask in reference to the 6 food trucks that we have. Do you know the other 4 trucks? Have you interacted with them?
Just one, Royal Catering.
Okay, so it
they're
is-
going to the industrial commercial. They're
Like
there
lunch
for like
trucks,
10,
right?
15 minutes and then go to their next destination.
And then the other 3, do you know if they're also lunch trucks or?
They're catering trucks as well.
Okay,
They're-
so that makes sense why we don't really see the other 4.
Correct.
Because, okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you. And then, so I did have a couple of questions, and I think this way we can bring something back. But I think what would be wise is for us to, kind of gather all of the comments that council had. And let's go down as an example, vending hours, right? Let's tackle that down. So right now we're currently from 9 to 8 p.m. So, I mean, I don't really see vendors out that early. I usually see them in the late afternoon, evenings. So, I mean, look, one of the things that we have to do is, obviously, we want to write this ordinance to where it's fair, it's flexible, but also not to a point where it's going to get out of hand and out of control. Because I think that now with times, there's a lot of people on social media that are following different types of food trucks. And if we can get some of those unique food trucks in the city, it'll help us, like with Councilmember Estrada was saying, our downtown, our Zocalo, when we leave the city council here, it's dead. I drive all the way up Main to when I get home, and it's dead. Everything's pretty much dark already. I didn't know that we weren't able to enforce, as such as Mayor Pro Tem Ayala had mentioned, where, I wouldn't want a food truck to park in front of a Mexican restaurant if the Mexican restaurant's there and it's selling tacos and the food truck comes and parks right in front of it, blocks their storefront. So what you're saying, Okina, is that we cannot control, and legal, maybe you may want to jump on this. So if there's a food truck that sells tacos, a taco food truck, and it goes and parks in front of a Mexican restaurant who also sells tacos, we cannot enforce that food truck not to park there?
Yeah, I'd need to actually look at that one. That is the complaint that you frequently hear. You'll get the businesses that will come in and say, I'm really tired of this. And it's not usually a food truck. It's often one of the sidewalk vendors that locates near their business, and they'll come in and they'll complain about that. Most of the time, what I'm finding with the sidewalk ones is that they're not authorized through the county. They're not legal. So they could be enforced against if there's diligent. And normally the city partners with the county about the health issue, and they get out there and they they enforce the health requirements in terms of they don't have an appropriate kitchen and such, and they do confiscate the equipment. And that's when you start to see a reduction of those. But the food trucks, I think those, I mean, I could be wrong. I think it does depend on the city, but you know, they're more mobile. If you give them a place to go, they'll go there, you know, because they do like there is a unifying thing where, you know, you have a dessert vehicle and you have, you know, Italian and you have a Mexican
Yeah.
vehicle, and you get some choices and maybe you know, drinks and things like that. They work well together. They like having 4 trucks, 5 trucks, you know, or more.
Mayor, and that's where we would come in and have that good relationship with the truck vendor and talk to them and have a specific place where they can actually vend and say, hey, for your type of food that you're selling, we would prefer that you're in this location. Just have that relationship so that they abide. I mean, even though we can't make it a law, have a conversation so that, hey, you know, this is a better spot for you because you would be providing a different type of food than they're already offering in this location.
So in the ordinance, are you guys, are what you guys saying is we propose an ordinance where we're going to have designated areas of the city where we're going to allow these food trucks, and anything out of these designated areas, they're not permitted to sell? Is that what I'm hearing from you guys, from the council?
We could do that, yeah.
I mean, because look, if we have, so obviously we don't want them in residential areas.
My only thing about that is because Carlos mentioned that some of them are like catering. So they,
I guess for like future, well, I mean, I guess those.
you know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that's what the time 9 a.m. to whatever, because they, you
Well,
know,
I think like those have been around for a long time, and it's usually on private property where they're driving onto the.
yeah, they're like
Yeah.
providing
They're
lunch or whatever to those places.
And those are in and out.
They're invited
Usually
by the
about 30
owner to be
minutes.
there.
Yeah.
I would
I'm
think.
just saying, you know, if we're gonna like specify an area, then do they meet that? Do they have to meet that criteria to be in that area? You see what I'm saying?
I think that maybe what we could do is we can kind of separate the two, right? Let me ask you, when they apply for these permits, for these licenses, do we know what type of truck it is right off the bat? In other words, are they indicating, hey, we're just a lunch truck that comes into the business and leaves? Or are we one that parks on your street? Because that is the difference from a regular, you know, lunch truck that does go into private property most of the times, either, you know, construction sites or, you know, fabrics or different businesses that they provide lunch to their employees versus them actually coming to, you know, park on our streets. So is there something that distinguishes them when they apply for the license?
We could, typically they identify the type of food or type of activity because they have to identify that when they get the health department approval.
Okay.
Because of the preparation. But usually the name itself give out the information of what they sell. And I do apologize. We made an error. We identified on the slide that it was 6 active business. And I guess, Mayor, we're saying that, do we know who they are? If I do have the list from our business license folks, if you want to know, I'll be able to tell you all the names of what's licensed. We have 7 legal, legit food vendor truck licenses in the city. If you want the name, I could give you the name, and the name will probably kind of tell it for itself, except for 1, maybe 2 that I can't tell. Would you like that? Okay. AV Ice Cream. It's an ice cream truck. Rigo's Ice Cream. Calais Sweet Inc. The Hibachi Grill one, the one on the Target that we were talking about. Miguel's Ice Cream truck. Garcia Royal Caterer. Don't know what type of food they
Their
serve.
lunch truck.
They're a food truck. They're all food truck. Alfaro Ice Cream. So those are the 7.
So see, so this is my thing, right? That, you know, those ones that come in, those catering trucks that come into the businesses to provide lunch for the employees. I mean, I don't really have a problem with those at all because they're in and out and they're not in our streets. I think the ones that we need to, and I think we need to distinguish the two, right? So obviously we can't change the hours and not say 9 a.m. because those come during the day. But for me, if I think we want to bring in some type of different type of food trucks, I think 8 p.m. we may be limiting ourselves. I think maybe more, 10 p.m. is a little bit more doable, and I'll let the rest of the council to kind of bring that in. But I think that one of the things that we should address is the vending hours. So if we can go down the list, so we can kind of make this quick because we got to go to closed session. What are you guys comfortable with going up to? So as an example, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. or what is the latest? Because I know weekends, sometimes, especially our younger generations, we did it back in the day. When you go out partying and you want to, right now the hot spot in Boulder Park is King Taco, but a lot of the times you come home from partying and you want to have something good, right? So a lunch truck would be a good place, and if it's 8 p.m., they're gone. So what is a good hour for you guys? Do you think it should be Monday through Sunday, or do you think maybe 10 p.m. and maybe push it till midnight, Fridays and Saturdays? Just kind of throwing some ideas out to you guys to see what you guys can come up with.
Mayor, I don't want to intrude on your reminiscing, but I mean, I agree. I think that you do it too early, it's not convenient for anybody. And, we also want to benefit. I said, like we said, right, one of the potential benefits is that people are out more. When people are out more, especially later at the night, more eyes on the streets, makes the streets better and makes it safer.
Yeah.
Just puts more eyes out there. I think at the very least 10, and then maybe extend it on the weekends. But if it's 10, get to be, I would think like they stop vending at 10 and then they get a leniency time to pick up and go clean up. Because it has to be convenient for them as well, right? I mean, this is their full-time job to some of them, or this is like their investment.
So what would you say on the weekends extended? So weekends would be Friday and Saturday. What would you guys say extended to? I wouldn't extend it past midnight.
11, 12.
11, 12? Okay, so what do you guys think about Monday through Thursday, 9 to 10? And then Fridays and Saturdays, what do you guys think, either going 11 or 12?
I'm good with that, and I'm good with either 11 or 12 for the weekends. And we're looking at just those that are going to be commercial corridor. I would agree with that because they have more visibility, I think. Also, these are just like the food vendors, right? So like the
Food-
ice cream peoples,
Yeah, no.
their hours are not till midnight because I don't need to hear the ding ding
No,
off
no,
the
no,
street.
yeah, no. No, these
Because when I hear it, I'm
No,
like, whoa.
and that's the reason why I say I think we should designate areas so they're not overflowing into our residential areas, right? Because even then, even though they don't, they're not coming around with the little music. If I'm down the street, if I live, there's a taco truck down my street, I don't want all these people parking in front of my house and making all this noise and then probably getting, their food and throwing it in our front yards. So that's the reason why I don't think these should be allowed.
And I think that's
residential
why CEO Korea suggested the commercial corridors
Although
with that as well.
I do have a question. I have friends that will book a food truck for a birthday party, maybe a pizza truck, and if for a residential home. So would that be allowed to be parked in front of the house? And would this ordinance affect that food truck vendor?
So I think it should be allowed because if you as a resident, you're having a party, chances are, unless your neighbors hate you, you're probably invited to that party, right? But now the question is, do they, if one of us was to rent, like Manny said, a pizza truck to come to our home, do they have to take out a special permit for that from the city?
No, as long as they have the food truck license, they could travel through the city.
So no, I was just asking because that way, okay, so then we can exclude those from the ordinance. So in other words, we would allow those within the ordinance. So that would be allowed,
Yeah.
right?
I would just say that you don't want to have them on as a general rule because they may get a permit and then now they want to locate on a residential street. So it seems like if you want to hold a special event, we have just like a ministerial permit that they can pull 3 times a year for a house on a residential street or something like that.
I think we
Yeah.
probably just need a consensus that they're not selling to the general public.
Correct.
It is for the folks invited to
The
that
public.
party.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Sorry, Mayor.
uh,
As you address the areas where they're going to be and then the potential special vending zone, think it's also important to consider, you know, if a street vendor has an opportunity to be on a private lot, then what, right? So like, let's say the hibachi truck is offered a space inside of the parking lot at the plaza, then are they now exempt? Are they now able to, I mean, is that,
Well, I think that we need to address it within, if we're going to create designated areas for them to be in, and that is not one of them, then we need to figure out how we would address it if they're in private property, right? So, because there's a lot of moving pieces to this, and it's gonna take a lot longer, but I think that for now, you have the vending hours. We're okay with 9 to 10, Monday to Thursday, and then extending them until midnight, Fridays and Saturdays in commercial. Well, I don't think they're gonna, well, I don't know. I don't think that they're specifically gonna be there that early because they don't really come out that early anyways. But only it, yeah, so it's,
Mayor,
yeah.
but we will stipulate, as the attorney said, that they would have to pull a permit.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about the residents that will be hosting the event.
No.
No?
So this is basically, you know, because we have those vendors that go into the businesses to provide lunch during the day. Then I think the ones that we're targeting more are gonna be the ones that normally are out in the evening on our streets, right? And then Manny brought up a good point about whether if a resident wants to rent a pizza truck to provide, you know, pizzas for a private party. I don't know if, you know, I kind of agree with Councilmember Avila to where we don't want our residents to jump through hoops either. You know, just to get a pizza truck or, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, I really haven't seen any of these big old trucks at parties, but or in and out. Yeah, I don't want it to be an inconvenience to our residents. You know what I mean? If
so
one of
maybe-
us,
sorry, but it sounds like we just have to specify that this ordinance is specifically for, you know, commercially, like food vendors selling to the general public.
exactly, yes. Yeah, so I guess, you know, it's basically focusing on those food trucks, like the hibachi truck that's out in front of the Target. So those are kind of like the ones that we're targeting. Yeah, without interfering with the ones that are going to the businesses during the day. And then we won't even, you know, broadcast about the pizza trucks to private properties, but it's specifically for the vendors that are out on the street selling tacos or hibachi or whatever. So, now, the second thing is that we need to address as a council is how many hours are we going to allow for these vendors to be out there? So as an example, yeah, we've extended their hours till midnight on the weekends, but are we gonna say, okay, we're gonna be okay with them coming in from 9 a.m. to midnight there? Or are we gonna give them a certain amount of hours to be there? So that's another one that we have to tackle because that's important because we definitely don't want them to have to move every 10 minutes. So that's the reason why I think it's important that we figure out a map to where we designate where these trucks are gonna be.
But right now, to determine, get away with the 10 minutes, determine the time that we.
That we're allowing them, yeah. So,
Hey,
So you wanted to say something like a maximum of
yeah, like.
whatever
4 to
during,
6 hours.
it's
Well,
because
because-
in Irwindale, they say maximum out 4 hours per day per lot. As an example.
Yeah, so as an example, let's just say they come out on Friday, right? Are we gonna want them to start, if they're gonna be there till midnight, are we gonna allow them to start at 6 p.m. or 8 p.m., right? So if they start at 6 p.m. to midnight, that's 6 hours. If they start at 8 p.m. to midnight, then that's 4 hours. So we need to be able to come up with a cap as to how long they're gonna be able to be there. Yeah, the operating hours are from 9 a.m. to midnight or 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., but that doesn't mean we're gonna give them, you know, 12 hours to be there. Well, I think moving is gonna be out of the I think once they move, they're gone.
That's up to them.
Well, yeah. So that's why I think that we need to come up as a council. Let's come up with an agreement as to how many hours would you say is fair for them to be there? Do we want 4 hours? Do we want 6 hours?
Mayor, also, it sounds like Christian's gonna have to, you know, do
Yeah,
some due
what-
diligence and make sure that we can.
Well, we want to give them kind of our feedback so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they can do the research and then bring it back to us and let us know, yes, you can do this. No, you can't do that. Yeah.
And I think it would also be beneficial, we, you know, set up a meeting, maybe 2 council member staff. That we only have 2 trucks that are actually, you know, selling to the public.
Yeah.
to try to better understand, what's their process, right? Because from our perspective, we can only imagine so much of it, but we don't know their exact process to how long it takes them to set up. What are their hours exactly? What are they looking for? Right. So we just want to make sure that we kind of
Yeah.
make them a part of this conversation.
Conversation.
That we have some input from them too as we kind of design it, so that we don't have to keep going back and forth.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we, you guys kind of got our feedback already, right? You guys have the hours from 9 to 10, Monday to Thursday, and then 9 to 12, Fridays and Saturdays. Maybe you guys can come up with 4 hours to be there from Monday through Thursday, and then maybe give them 6 hours for Fridays and Saturdays. You see what I mean? So that way if they want to be there, because the weekends people may, you have those that want to come out at midnight, but you may want to have those families that want to come in a little earlier at 6 p.m. So
Now
maybe do 4 hours and 6 hours.
Mayor,
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay,
and we skipped Sunday, so I'm assuming Sunday will be considered a Monday?
Yeah, Sunday will
Okay.
be a Monday.
All right.
So Sunday is in the same, it'll be Sunday to Thursday.
Yeah, Sunday through Thursday, yeah, and then 6 hours Friday and Saturday. And then it'll be 9 to 10 and then 9 to 12.
Okay.
And then work on designated areas. Oh, no, it's every day, Monday through, so it's Sunday through, well, Sunday's not really considered a weekend because then it'd be at midnight. No, it's Sunday through Thursday. Well, so,
So if I can help facilitate to be clear for my own purpose and notes.
yeah,
So it looked like Sunday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. We're changing from 8 to 10.
correct.
Friday and Saturday is 9 a.m. to 12 a.m.
Correct.
midnight. And then there's a discussion with regards to these are the hours for food vendors. And then you want to separate and distinguish that between ice cream trucks in terms of hours operation.
Yes, because like Mayor Pro Tem, she doesn't want the little ice cream
Yeah.
truck singing in her.
And
Yes, leaving
So
that. the
Maybe
state-
not going to
think-
9 to
I think it's the noise. We just, it's the noise is the issue.
Eight.
So no noise
unless summer.
except for these hours, something like that.
also, we need to double check and make sure there is no workaround. So if there is a vendor that rents a private lot, that they cannot be there 24 hours a day, or unless that's council's wishes.
Yeah, so bring that back. And then it's gonna be Okina 4 hours. So they're gonna be allowed to be there for 4 hours from Sunday through Thursday. And then they'll be allowed to be there for 6 hours Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah, I got that with regards to the hour limit.
Yeah,
But going back to the ice cream, you want to leave that as 9 to 8,
Eight.
like the way it
Yes.
is?
yes.
Okay.
And these are, and let's distinguish this. These are the ice cream trucks that are driving around.
Yes.
So it won't pertain to if it's a food truck that sells ice cream that wants to park at a location. You see the distinguishment there?
Definitely.
And then if you guys could just come up with designated areas. I've always thought that a good location would be Bogart here, especially on the weekends because they can park at the transit center.
Major
um,
arterials?
What's that?
Are you referring to like major arterials?
Yeah, but then again, we don't really want them too close to the freeways either because well, yeah, I mean you have that's what I'm saying, like designated areas like Bogart can be I'm just mentioning that Bogart could be one of them because if our community wants to park somewhere, they can park there. And my other reasoning behind that is I just want to liven up the Zócalo. So if, maybe somebody will grab an ice cream and walk over to the Zócalo or whatever, just kind of, liven this place up because you go downtown and it's dead.
So what we can do as staff, we got some direction here. We'll work around to create a summary overview. will generate a map overview of restricted area or allowable area. And we hold another quick study session for you to go over
Yeah.
and clarify the direction.
Yes, please.
So that way you could fine tune the district, the area, add, subtract, and then clarify these parameters, what we have. And then you could always make some minor tweak and adjustment thereafter.
Yeah, I think that's good to just get general guidance because we need to look at what other cities are doing and what's been successful. I think part of the issue there was, let's say when they do gather, a lot of times it's on private property. I've seen them in shopping centers where the shopping center isn't, let's say, that active. And they're trying to bring in business so that it might be something where that shopping center comes to us and gets a permit so that they could be here every Thursday. And so we have a chance for fire.
Right, typically.
Fire can check the, you know. the
Typically, a
safety.
situation like that, let's just say a struggling shopping center, they want to help promote the center by bringing food trucks, a variety of food trucks. They have the mechanism, the ability to apply for a temporary use permit. Let's just say we want to hold a food truck event for Wednesday night because it's hump day and it's the slowest day. We want to
Or every Wednesday.
week
for the next-
activity. Yeah, the time restriction, then they have that mechanism to do that, but the parameter will be able to give them.
And then on the food truck topic, really quick, to Councilmember Avila's point is, and I don't know who would handle this, Manny, but let's focus on maybe bringing in, maybe there's an RCS event, but maybe what we can do is start off with bringing them to the Zocalo and kind of have a food truck event there, park some food trucks and just, come up with something creative so that we can maybe get some of those food trucks to maybe want to come into the city. All right. All right, so you guys got some general feedback, right? Anybody else have any? No? Okay, that's it. Thank you so much, Okina. Carlos, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and recess into a closed session.